The Last Hunt of the Silver Wolf, a hunter's oath to protect the sacred lands. In the heart of the vast and unyielding forests of Eldora, there lived a legendary creature, the Silver Wolf. Its fur shimmered like moonlight, its eyes gleamed with the wisdom of centuries, and its presence was both feared and revered by all who roamed the land. The Silver Wolf was not just an animal, it was a guardian, a protector of the sacred lands, ensuring the balance between nature and humankind remained unbroken. For generations, hunters had sought the creature, each driven by a desire to capture or kill the elusive beast for fame or fortune. But none succeeded, for the Silver Wolf was as intelligent as it was swift, able to vanish into the mists of the forest at will. Many believed the creature to be more myth than reality, but those who had seen it knew better. It was a living testament to the spirit of the land. Among those who had hunted these forests for years was a seasoned hunter named Kalen. He was known far and wide as one of the finest in his craft, having tracked every beast in Eldora, from the great bears of the northern mountains to the fearsome elk of the south. Yet there was one creature he had never encountered, the Silver Wolf. Kalen had heard the stories, the whispers of elders around campfires, the tales passed down through generations. He knew the wolf's power, its sacred bond with the land. But over time, as greed and ambition grew stronger within him, Kalen became obsessed with capturing the legendary creature. The elders had warned him, the Silver Wolf is not just a beast to hunt, it is the embodiment of the land's spirit. To harm it would be to harm the land itself. But Kalen did not listen. His pride clouded his judgment, and he swore to himself that he would be the one to claim the Silver Wolf as his trophy. One crisp autumn morning, as the golden leaves drifted from the trees like fire, Kalen ventured deeper into the forest than ever before. Armed with a bow carved from the wood of an ancient tree, he set his sights on the Silver Wolf. He knew it was a dangerous pursuit, but his mind was made up. This hunt would bring him glory, and perhaps, the respect he craved. The forest was eerily quiet as Kalen made his way through the dense undergrowth. The usual sounds of chirping birds and rustling animals had ceased, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. He knew the Silver Wolf was near. Its presence lingered in the air, a subtle weight that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. As Kalen ventured deeper into the woods, a strange feeling of unease began to settle within him. The path seemed to twist in ways it never had before, as though the forest itself was shifting. Suddenly, the stillness was broken by a soft growl. Kalen spun around, his bow raised, but the Silver Wolf was nowhere in sight. The growl echoed again, closer this time. And then, out of the shadows, the Silver Wolf emerged. Its coat gleamed with a celestial light, its eyes burning with an ancient intelligence that sent a chill down Kalen's spine. The wolf stood there, regal and calm, as though it had been waiting for him all along. Kalen's heart raced. He could feel the weight of centuries of history in that single gaze. "Do you think you can capture me, hunter?" The Silver Wolf's voice echoed in his mind, a voice as ancient as the land itself. Kalen froze. He had heard the tales, but never had he imagined that the wolf could speak. He opened his mouth, but no words came. The hunter, now a mere mortal in the face of the creature, lowered his bow. In that moment, Kalen understood the truth. The Silver Wolf was not to be hunted. It was not an enemy to be slain. It was the guardian of the sacred lands, a being who existed not for glory or profit, but to maintain the delicate balance between the earth and all who inhabited it. To harm it would be to defy the very essence of life itself. The wolf stepped closer, its presence overwhelming, and in its eyes, Kalen saw flashes of the future, visions of a land dying, forests withering, rivers drying. He saw the consequences of his greed, the destruction that would follow if he succeeded in his hunt. "I have heard your oath, hunter," the Silver Wolf spoke again, its voice a soft whisper against the wind. "But now, you must take a new one." Tears welled in Kalen's eyes as he knelt before the Silver Wolf, his bow falling to the forest floor. "I swear," he whispered, "I swear to protect this land. I swear to guard it with my life, as you have done for centuries." The Silver Wolf regarded him silently, then turned and began to walk away. Kalen, now bound by a new oath, followed. As they moved deeper into the forest, Kalen realized that the true hunt was not one of blood and death, but of understanding and protection. He was no longer a hunter, he was a guardian, and the Silver Wolf had passed on its legacy to him. From that day forward, Kalen roamed the forests not as a hunter, but as a protector. The sacred lands of Eldra flourished under his watch, and the Silver Wolf, now a spirit of the land, watched over him from the shadows, its presence forever entwined with the forest's heart. And so, the last hunt of the Silver Wolf was not one of destruction, but of transformation, an oath sworn to protect the sacred lands for all eternity. The Last Hunt of the Silver Wolf, The Hunter's Oath to Protect the Sacred Lands, Part 2. Years passed since Kaelin made his vow to protect the sacred lands, and the forest of Eldra flourished under his watch. The once feared hunter had become a legend in his own right, not for the creatures he killed, but for those he saved. The villagers spoke of him as a protector, the guardian of Eldra. His hair had grayed, his bow now adorned with intricate carvings of the animals he had once hunted, symbols of his pledge to the land. But as time passed, Kaelin felt an uneasy silence growing around him. One evening, as the sun dipped beneath the horizon and painted the sky in fiery hues of orange and purple, Kaelin sat by the edge of the Eldra River. The sound of rushing water, once a constant companion, now felt distant, as if the very land itself was holding its breath. It was during these quiet moments that he felt the presence of the Silver Wolf the most. Though the creature never appeared in physical form, it was as though the spirit of the wolf had become part of him, woven into his thoughts, his actions, and his heart. But there was a change in the air. Something was wrong. A faint whisper, carried on the wind, reached Kaelin's ears. It was a sound he had never heard before, the faint echo of a cry, a scream of pain. It came from the heart of the forest, from a place he knew well. The sacred grove, where the Silver Wolf had once led him, was under threat. Without hesitation, Kaelin rose to his feet, his old joints aching from years of service. His instincts kicked in as he followed the sound, his senses alert to every shift in the wind, every rustle of the leaves. He moved quickly, his movements silent and precise, his mind already thinking through the possibilities. As he neared the grove, the air grew thick with tension, and the sounds of the forest faded into an oppressive silence. When he arrived, he saw what no hunter should ever have to witness. The land was bleeding. Great swaths of the forest had been torn apart, the trees felled in ruthless, unnatural ways. The sacred grove was in ruins, the ancient stone circle that had stood for centuries now shattered. In the center of it all stood a group of men, hunters, like Kaelin once was, but their eyes were cold and merciless. They wielded iron axes and blades, tools of destruction, and they were cutting into the heart of the forest. "Stop," Kaelin shouted, his voice a mix of command and desperation. The men turned, their eyes widening in surprise at the appearance of the old hunter. One of them, a tall figure with a scar running down his face, sneered. "Ah, the guardian of Eldra," he said with mocking respect. "I've heard of you, but you're too late. The forest is ours now. We've come to claim what's rightfully ours: wealth, power, control." Kaelin's heart sank. These men weren't just poaching for survival or sport. They were defiling the land, seeking to exploit its resources without care for the balance it had once held. "You don't understand," Kaelin said, his voice trembling. "This land is sacred. It's alive. You can't just take from it without consequences." The scarred man laughed, his voice filled with disdain. "Consequences? We've been hunting here for years, old man. The Silver Wolf is nothing but a fairy tale. We've already seen the land fall to ruin, and nothing has happened." Kaelin's eyes darkened. He could feel the anger rising in him, the years of silence and restraint breaking like a dam. These men were not just invaders, they were a threat to the very essence of the world he had sworn to protect. His hand went to the bow on his back, the familiar weight grounding him in the moment. "You don't understand," Kaelin repeated, his voice now filled with authority. "The Silver Wolf's oath was not just to the forest, it was to all who respect it. And now, you've broken that bond." As Kaelin spoke, the ground trembled beneath his feet, a low rumble that grew louder, until the earth seemed to groan with the pain of the wounded forest. The Silver Wolf appeared, but not as it had before. It was no longer a solitary figure of gleaming fur, but a vast, ethereal presence. Its form shimmered in the twilight, its eyes burning with the power of the ancient land. The hunters froze in terror, their weapons faltering in their hands. The Silver Wolf's gaze swept over them, and for a moment, the world seemed to stand still. "You are not welcome here." The Silver Wolf's voice echoed in Kaelin's mind. "You have disturbed the balance, defiled the sacred land. There will be consequences." The scarred man's bravado faltered, but he gritted his teeth, his grip tightening around his axe. "We fear no creature," he spat. The silver wolf let out a low growl, and in that instant, the forest seemed to come alive. The trees shifted, their branches creaking as if they were reaching out. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain, of earth, of life. It was as if the forest itself had awakened from a long slumber, ready to fight back against the trespassers. Kalen stepped forward, his voice steady but firm. "You cannot fight the land, nor can you fight the spirit of the silver wolf. You have two choices: leave this place and never return, or face the wrath of the forest." The scarred man hesitated, glancing nervously at his companions. One by one, they lowered their weapons, their confidence shattered by the power of the forest and the creature that had once been only a legend. In the end, they turned and fled, their footsteps quick and panicked as they disappeared into the depths of the forest. The silver wolf, its form now fading into the twilight, gave Kalen a final, lingering look. "You have kept your oath," the wolf's voice whispered. "But remember, the land is always watching. As long as you protect it, the balance will remain. But should you ever falter, the consequences will be greater than you can imagine." Kalen nodded, his heart heavy with the weight of his vow. As the last of the hunters vanished, the forest began to heal, the trees began to rise again, the broken stone circle slowly mending, and the sacred grove started to glow with life once more. The silver wolf was gone, but Kalen knew it was always there, in the winds, in the rivers, in the whispers of the forest. He was not alone in his oath, he never would be. And so, the land of Eldra remained protected, not just by a single hunter, but by the spirit of the silver wolf, and the promise that no one would ever again threaten the sacred balance. The Last Hunt of the Silver Wolf, The Hunter's Oath to Protect the Sacred Lands, Part 3. Years passed in relative peace after Kalen's confrontation with the hunters. Eldra flourished, its trees thick and vibrant, the rivers flowing with a pure, untainted current. Kalen, now an elder in the eyes of the villagers, continued his work as the guardian of the sacred land. His once graying hair had become silvered completely, and his once sharp eyes were now clouded by time. Though they still held the wisdom of years spent walking the ancient paths, his duty was no longer that of a hunter, but a protector, a shepherd to the land he had once sought to conquer. However, peace is often fragile, and the world has a way of shifting beneath even the most steadfast guardians. Though the hunters who had once ravaged the sacred lands had not returned, new threats had begun to emerge, more subtle, more insidious. One evening, as Kalen sat near the Eldra River, the same place where he had first felt the unease all those years ago, a visitor arrived. She was a woman, cloaked in deep blue robes, her face obscured by a veil. Kalen felt an unfamiliar chill run down his spine as she approached. "You are Kalen, the guardian of Eldra?" she asked, her voice smooth and cold like the distant winter winds. "I am," Kalen replied, rising slowly from his seated position. There was something about this woman, an aura of power that he could not place. "Who are you?" The woman pulled back her hood, revealing a face that was both youthful and ancient, as though she were suspended between two worlds. Her eyes gleamed with the same celestial light that Kalen had once seen in the Silver Wolf. "I am Selene, the Keeper of the Lost," she said. "I have come to speak of something grave." Kalen's heart sank. He had heard whispers of such figures, keepers of forgotten magic and lost knowledge. They were few, and their purposes often dark or mysterious. "What is it you seek in Eldra?" Kalen asked, his hand instinctively resting on the hilt of his dagger, though he had not drawn it. Selene's gaze flickered briefly to the ancient forest behind Kalen, as though assessing its depth and strength. "I seek the heart of the forest," she said, "the very soul of Eldra, the power that is hidden beneath the roots, the energy that flows through the land." Kalen's heart pounded. It was a threat he had feared might one day surface. There were old legends, whispered only in the shadows of sacred groves, that spoke of those who sought to harness the earth's magic for their own ends. The Silver Wolf had always protected that heart, the very pulse of the land. Without it, the forest would wither and die, and with it, the balance of life in Eldra. "You will not have it," Kalen said firmly, stepping in front of the path leading deeper into the forest. Selene tilted her head slightly, her lips curling into a smile. "Do you think you can stop me, old man? I know the magic of the earth as well as the Silver Wolf did. You may protect the surface, but you do not control the forces beneath. Kalen took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his oath once more settle into his chest. I protect this land with my life, he said, his voice low, but unwavering. The Silver Wolf made me its heir, and I will not let you or anyone else destroy what we have sworn to protect. Selene's smile faded, and her expression became one of icy resolve. So be it. But remember, Kalen of Eldora, the forest is not as it once was. There are forces at play beyond your understanding. Even the Silver Wolf could not foresee the darkness that stirs beneath these roots. With a flick of her wrist, the ground trembled, the earth beneath Kalen's feet shifted, and the trees began to groan, their trunks cracking like thunder. From the forest emerged twisted forms, creatures of shadow, creatures born of corrupted magic. They were not the spirits of the land, nor were they animals of any kind. They were twisted imitations of life, their bodies bent in unnatural shapes. Kalen drew his dagger, his heart racing, but he knew this was not a battle he could win with mere steel. He could feel the spirit of the land stirring beneath him, as if calling for aid, but the magic was twisted, corrupted by the woman's presence. Selene stepped back, raising her arms. The Silver Wolf's legacy is a fleeting thing, she said. Even the greatest of guardians cannot withstand the pull of greed and power. I will take what I came for, and you will not stop me. Suddenly, a cry rang out, a howl, a familiar sound, one that Kalen had not heard in years, the howl of the Silver Wolf. The air around him seemed to shimmer, and from the shadows of the trees, the Silver Wolf emerged once more. But it was not the same creature Kalen had once seen. Its form was more ethereal, its body now woven from the very essence of the land itself, its eyes burning with a fierce light that seemed to pierce through the very fabric of reality. The Silver Wolf stepped forward, its eyes locked on Selene. The creatures of shadow recoiled, hissing as the wolf's presence washed over them like a wave of light. You have corrupted what was pure, the wolf's voice echoed in Kalen's mind. You seek to destroy the heart of the forest for your own gain. I will not allow this. Selene's face twisted in anger, her power flaring. You are nothing but a shadow of the past. Silver Wolf, the magic is mine to control. With a wave of her hand, the ground beneath her began to crack, a dark vortex of energy swirling at her feet. The creatures of shadow surged forward, their claws reaching for the Silver Wolf, but it was not afraid. The wolf's eyes burned brighter, and in an instant, it leapt forward, a streak of moonlight against the darkness. Kalen felt the earth tremble beneath him as the two powers collided, Selene's dark magic against the Silver Wolf's ancient force. The ground cracked open, the forest shuddering as if it were alive with pain. Kalen, his heart heavy with the weight of his oath, stepped forward, his voice rising above the chaos. I will protect this land, no matter the cost. The Silver Wolf's voice filled his mind once more. You are not alone, Kalen. You have the strength of the land with you. As Kalen raised his dagger, a new force surged through him, an ancient, primal power that was the essence of Eldora itself. It coursed through his veins, his heart, his very soul, binding him to the forest in a way he had never known. With a final cry, he hurled the dagger towards Selene's dark magic, shattering the vortex and sending a shockwave through the forest. Selene screamed, her power collapsing in on itself, and in the blink of an eye, the dark creatures vanished, their forms dissipating into the wind like smoke. The Silver Wolf stood, its form now more solid than before, its eyes gazing at Kalen with pride. You have done it, the wolf said. The land is saved. But remember, the balance must always be maintained. There will always be those who seek to take what they cannot understand. Kalen nodded, his heart at peace, though weary from the battle. He had fulfilled his oath, not just as a protector, but as a true heir to the legacy of the Silver Wolf. And in that moment, the forest was whole again. The Silver Wolf, its form now fading into the twilight, left Kalen with one final piece of wisdom. Guard the sacred lands, Kalen, always, and never forget. The true strength lies in the heart of the land, and in the hearts of those who protect it. As the wolf disappeared into the shadows, Kalen stood alone but not without purpose. The forest, the land, and the spirits within it would always be with him. The oath had not ended, it had only just begun. The Last Hunt of the Silver Wolf, the Hunter's Oath to Protect the Sacred Lands, Part 4. Years had passed since Kalen's victory over Selene, the Dark Keeper who sought to corrupt the heart of Eldora. The forest had healed, its sacred lands blooming with life once more. But peace, Kaelin knew, was not something that could last forever. The world was constantly shifting, and with each passing season, new threats arose, more subtle, more insidious than the last. In the quiet years following Selene's defeat, Kaelin had come to understand something deeper than the forest's protection. He had come to learn that the land itself was alive, that the balance between nature, magic, and humankind was delicate, fragile. As the protector of Eldora, he was not simply a guardian of the trees and rivers, but a custodian of the sacred covenant between all living things. And so, he had vowed to never allow the balance to be broken again. But now, a new darkness was creeping in, this one unlike any Kaelin had ever felt before. It was not an external force, like the Hunters or Selene's corrupt magic. This threat was something more insidious, more deeply rooted within the very fabric of the land. It began as whispers, faint murmurs carried on the wind, spoken by the ancient trees themselves. Kaelin would hear them as he walked the familiar paths of the forest, their voices like the creaking of old wood. They spoke of a growing shadow, something beneath the earth, stirring in the forgotten corners of the land. One evening, as Kaelin sat atop a hill overlooking the vast expanse of Eldora, the sky painted in the colors of twilight, the whispers grew louder. The land was calling to him, its voice filled with desperation. His heart clenched in response. This was no mere disturbance, it was something far more dangerous. As he descended the hill toward the forest's heart, the air grew heavy, thick with a sense of foreboding. The trees, once vibrant with life, were now silent, their branches swaying in an unnatural wind. The sacred grove, where the silver wolf had once appeared, stood still, too still. Kaelin's steps quickened as he made his way toward the center of the grove, where the magic of the land was the strongest. When he arrived, he saw it. The ancient stone circle that had once stood as a symbol of the land's eternal strength had begun to crack, its surface marred by deep fissures. The earth beneath it had shifted, and a dark, swirling energy pulsed from the very ground, as if something was trying to break free. Kaelin knelt down, his hand pressing against the cracked earth. He could feel the land beneath him trembling, as though it were alive, in pain. This was no ordinary disturbance. Someone, had awakened a force that should have remained buried forever. Suddenly, a figure appeared from the shadows, emerging from the swirling energy. It was a man, tall and cloaked in tattered robes, his face obscured by a hood, but Kaelin knew him immediately. His heart sank. "Zarek," Kaelin whispered, his voice filled with a mixture of dread and disbelief. "You." The figure revealed his face, his eyes glowing with a fierce, unnatural light. "Yes, Kaelin," Zarek said, his voice echoing with power. "It has been a long time, hasn't it? I have been waiting for this moment, waiting for the right time to return." Zarek was an ancient sorcerer, a figure from the old tales, one who had once sought to control the magic of the land itself. Long ago, he had been banished by the Silver Wolf, his dark magic too dangerous for the forest to bear. But now, it seemed, he had returned. "You were cast out," Kaelin said, rising to his feet, his hand on the hilt of his dagger. "The Silver Wolf protected this land from your kind. Why have you come back?" Zarek's lips curled into a cruel smile. "The Silver Wolf is gone, Kaelin. Its time has passed. I have learned much since our last encounter, and now I know how to bend the very earth to my will. The land's power will be mine to command, and nothing will stop me from claiming it." Kaelin's blood ran cold as he realized the true danger of Zarek's return. This was no ordinary sorcerer. Zarek had found a way to tap into the deepest, most forbidden magic of the land. The energy he wielded was not just dark, it was a perversion of the earth itself. "You cannot control the land, Zarek," Kaelin said, his voice steady despite the fear in his chest. "It is alive. It will never bend to your will. The Silver Wolf is gone, but I remain, and I will stop you." Zarek laughed, a sound that echoed through the forest like the rattle of bones. "You are just a man, Kaelin, a mere mortal who thinks he can protect a dying world." The Silver Wolf was nothing but a symbol, a relic of the past, but the true power lies beneath, in the forgotten places, and now, it will be mine. With a wave of his hand, the ground trembled once more, and the earth began to crack open, as if the very soul of Eldora was being torn apart. Dark tendrils of energy shot up from the cracks, twisting and writhing like serpents. The sacred grove, once a place of peace and magic, had become a battlefield, the land itself caught in the throes of corruption. Kalen knew he could not fight Zarek alone. The land's magic, tainted and twisted by the sorcerer's dark influence, was too strong for him to face with only his dagger. But in that moment, he felt a familiar presence, a light that flickered within the darkness. The Silver Wolf. The spirit of the Silver Wolf had not abandoned him. Kalen could feel it, deep within his bones, calling him to the heart of the land. The bond between them had never truly broken. The wolf had passed its legacy to Kalen, and now, it was time for him to step into his true role, not just as a protector, but as the living embodiment of the forest spirit. As Kalen reached into the earth, the energy surged around him. The Silver Wolf's voice echoed in his mind once more. You are the heir now, Kalen. The land's strength is yours to command. With those words, Kalen's body was flooded with power. The earth beneath him pulsed with ancient energy, and the trees around him seemed to awaken, their roots and branches reaching toward him, lending him their strength. The very essence of Eldra flowed through him, and in that moment, Kalen became something more than a man. He became the forest's heartbeat. You will not have this land, Zarek, Kalen said, his voice now imbued with the strength of the earth itself. The ground cracked open beneath his feet, and from the fissures, the roots of the ancient trees rose, wrapping themselves around the sorcerer, binding him in place. Zarek struggled, his dark magic flaring in violent bursts, but it was no use. The land had risen against him. Kalen raised his hand, and with a final surge of power, the energy that had once corrupted the grove was now purified, washed away by the magic of the Silver Wolf's legacy. Zarek fell to his knees, his power fading as the land reclaimed its strength. This is not over, Kalen, he hissed, his voice full of venom. The earth will always hunger for more. Then I will always stand in its way, Kalen replied, his voice resolute. With that, the sorcerer was cast into the depths of the earth, sealed away once more, never to threaten the land again. As the forest fell silent, Kalen stood alone in the heart of the sacred grove. The Silver Wolf, its spirit glowing faintly, appeared before him, its eyes filled with pride. You have done it, Kalen, the wolf said. The land is safe, for now. But remember, the balance must always be guarded. The world will always change, and the land will always need its protector. Kalen nodded, the weight of his oath heavy upon him. He was no longer just a man, no longer just a hunter. He was the forest's guardian, the living spirit of Eldra, and he would protect it for as long as he lived. The Last Hunt of the Silver Wolf, The Hunter's Oath to Protect the Sacred Lands, Part 5. The years following Kalen's final confrontation with Zarek passed in quiet resilience. The land of Eldra, healed and protected, thrived in peace once more. The sacred grove remained untouched, a symbol of Kalen's unbreakable bond with the land. But despite the tranquility that now blanketed the forest, Kalen knew that the world was never truly still. There was always the faintest whisper of danger on the horizon, a reminder that the balance of nature, no matter how carefully guarded, could be upended by unseen forces. And so, Kalen's work continued. Though his hair had long since turned white, and his body, though strong, had begun to slow with age, Kalen never wavered in his vigilance. He had become a living legend, known not just as the guardian of the forest, but as a part of the very land he swore to protect. His connection to Eldra was now not only spiritual but physical, his blood mingling with the roots and rivers that flowed through the sacred lands. The Silver Wolf's legacy pulsed through him, its strength giving him endurance far beyond that of any normal man. One evening, as Kalen made his way along a familiar trail, the whispers of the trees grew loud once more, but this time, they carried an urgent tone, a deep, mournful cry. The air, once so full of life, now seemed thick with something else, a sense of foreboding. Kalen paused, his heart tightening with an ancient instinct. Something had changed. The earth beneath him quivered, a gentle tremor that was far more than a mere shift in the ground. Kalen closed his eyes, reaching out with his senses, feeling the pulse of the land. He could feel it, the land was in pain, and it was calling out to him. He hurried toward the heart of the sacred grove, his steps quickening as the familiar trees loomed ahead, their twisted branches creaking in the wind. As Kalen approached, he could see that something was terribly wrong. The very air around the grove seemed to shimmer with an unnatural energy, the leaves turning a pale, sickly shade. At the center of the grove, Where the great stone circle once stood, Kaelin found the source of the disturbance. A figure stood in the center of the ruins, one Kaelin had never seen before. It was a woman, her face hidden beneath a hood of dark feathers, her form cloaked in a swirling mass of shadows. She stood with her arms outstretched, her hands raised toward the sky as if drawing down something ancient and powerful from the heavens above. Kaelin's heart sank. He could feel the land recoiling beneath him, as if it were trying to fight against the dark energy the woman was conjuring. "You," Kaelin said, his voice a mix of disbelief and anger. "What are you doing here?" The woman turned slowly, revealing a face both familiar and foreign, a pale visage with eyes that glowed with the same eerie light Kaelin had once seen in Zarek. "I am Nithra," she said, her voice smooth and cold like the wind before a storm, "and I have come to claim what is rightfully mine." Kaelin's grip tightened on his dagger. "You are no friend to Eldra. Leave this place, or I will stop you." Nithra smiled, her lips curling into a sinister grin. "You do not understand, Kaelin. This land is dying. The Silver Wolf's time has passed. The balance is already broken. I am simply here to help it along." Kaelin felt a coldness seep into his bones. "The land is not dying," he growled, stepping forward. "It is strong, and I will protect it with my life." Nithra raised her arms higher, her fingers curling like claws. "The land is a lie," she said, her voice growing louder, more powerful. "The forests, the rivers, the mountains, these are nothing more than shackles. Eldra's power was once a thing of wonder, but it is now nothing more than a prison. I will free it." With a flick of her wrist, the ground around them began to tremble once more. The trees groaned as their roots writhed beneath the surface of the earth. The stone circle cracked further, its once solid shape now splintered and crumbling. Kaelin's heart raced. He could feel the very life force of the land weakening, as if the earth were being drained of its vitality. This was no mere sorcery, this was a violation of the land's deepest essence, a dark force trying to tear the heart of Eldra asunder. "You cannot undo what has been done," Kaelin said, his voice steady, but filled with resolve. "The balance has been forged in blood and magic. The Silver Wolf's legacy cannot be broken by the likes of you." Nithra's eyes gleamed. "You are so foolish. You think this is about the past? About the Silver Wolf? No. This is about what is to come. The future is a place beyond the chains of your so-called balance, and I will be its architect." Kaelin knew that words alone would not stop her. He had fought before, against the hunters, against Zarek, and now, he would fight again. He stepped forward, his body crackling with the energy of the land, feeling the roots and rivers beneath him surge with the power of the Silver Wolf. The wolf's essence flowed through him, guiding his every move. "You are not the first to try and tear the balance apart, Nithra," Kaelin said, his voice low, "and you will not be the last, but I will not let you succeed." In a flash, Kaelin leapt toward Nithra, his dagger raised high, but before he could strike, Nithra extended her hand, and the earth beneath him cracked open, swallowing him whole. He fell, deeper and deeper into the dark abyss of the earth's wounded heart. The darkness surrounded him, and for a moment, he felt himself slipping, like the world itself was pulling him into its depths. But then, a voice, a familiar voice, echoed through the shadows. "Kaelin." It was the Silver Wolf. "Focus, you are not alone." The wolf's presence was overwhelming, filling him with strength and purpose. Kaelin pushed through the darkness, feeling the power of the land beneath him, the roots of the trees, the water of the rivers, the stones of the mountains, all of it surged within him. He reached out, his hand touching the soil of Eldra, and with that touch, he called upon the heart of the land, the very essence of the forest's magic. A blinding light erupted from within him, illuminating the darkness, pushing back the shadow that had consumed the earth. Nithra screamed, her form writhing as the light burned through her darkness. The land itself was rebelling against her, the very ground quaking with its fury. "No," Nithra shrieked, her power collapsing under the force of Kaelin's call. "You cannot stop this. I will be reborn." But Kaelin, with the strength of the Silver Wolf and the land itself, reached out one final time. The light erupted once more, and Nithra was consumed by it, her form vanishing into the air like smoke. As the light faded, Kaelin stood alone once more, his body trembling from the exertion. The land around him was still, and though the air was heavy, it was no longer tainted by darkness. The balance had been restored. Once again. The Silver Wolf's voice echoed in his mind. You have done it, Kaelin. The land is safe. But remember, the balance is a delicate thing. There will always be those who seek to disrupt it. Kaelin nodded, his heart heavy with the weight of his oath. I will protect it, always. And with that, the Guardian of Eldra stood firm, knowing that no matter what future threats may come, he would always stand between the land and those who sought to destroy it. The Silver Wolf's legacy lived on in him, and he would continue to protect the sacred lands for as long as the forest stood. The Last Hunt of the Silver Wolf, The Hunter's Oath to Protect the Sacred Lands, Part 6. Years turned into decades, and Kaelin, now a figure of legend, continued to guard the sacred land of Eldra. The forest, once again thriving and protected, had become his sanctuary, a place where the whispers of the trees spoke directly to him, a reminder of the bond he shared with the land. The Silver Wolf's spirit never left him. Its presence was woven into the very fibers of his being, and he carried its strength in every breath. But as time passed, Kaelin began to notice subtle shifts, whispers in the wind, flickers of movement in the corner of his vision. The balance that had once seemed so firmly secured began to waver once more. Something was amiss. On the eve of a new moon, when the sky was at its darkest, the ancient trees around Eldra began to groan, their branches swaying with unnatural force. Kaelin had long known that no storm would move them in such a way. He rose from his resting place beneath the ancient oak, his instincts sharp, feeling a familiar disturbance in the air. A distant howl reached his ears, one that sent chills down his spine. It was not the howl of the Silver Wolf, but something far darker, something that had lain dormant for centuries. Kaelin's heart raced as he gathered his belongings, preparing for a journey he had long hoped to avoid. There was a disturbance in the wild places beyond the sacred grove, a darkness that threatened to corrupt the land once more. The forest led him deeper than ever before, toward the forgotten parts of Eldra, where the trees grew so thick that no sunlight could penetrate. The air grew heavier, thick with the smell of damp earth and ancient magic. He knew where he was headed. There was one place in Eldra that had always been untouched by the Silver Wolf's protection, a place shrouded in mystery and fear, the Hollow of the Unseen. Few knew of its existence, and fewer still dared to venture there. The Hollow of the Unseen was a place where the land itself was said to be twisted by forgotten powers, where the very fabric of magic was warped and broken. It was a place of power, power that could corrupt and consume. Kaelin had not ventured there since he first took up the mantle of protector, but the howl he had heard earlier, that bone-chilling sound, spoke of something ancient awakening within the hollow. He could feel it in his bones. Something long buried was stirring. As he neared the hollow, the trees began to thin, the land changing before his eyes. The once lush forest gave way to barren, twisted trees, their gnarled limbs reaching like skeletal hands toward the sky. The air was thick with an unnatural stillness, and the earth felt cold underfoot. Kaelin's breath came in shallow gasps, a sense of dread curling in his chest. He was not alone. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, a woman, cloaked in tattered robes, her face hidden beneath a hood. Her presence was both haunting and familiar. Her voice, when she spoke, was soft, yet filled with the weight of centuries. I have been waiting for you, Kaelin, she said, her voice echoing through the hollow. You cannot stop what is coming. Kaelin's heart skipped a beat. You are not Nithra. The woman smiled darkly. No, I am much older than Nithra. I am the one who has slumbered in the depths of this land, the one who has fed on the power of Eldra for centuries. I am the Hollow's guardian, the one who has been forgotten by time. Kaelin's blood ran cold as the woman stepped closer, revealing her face, pale and ghostly, her eyes empty voids. I am the first of the unseen, she continued, and now, I awaken to reclaim what is mine. The land has been held in stasis for too long. It is time to break the chains, to undo the balance that has kept it prisoner. Kaelin's hand instinctively went to his dagger, but the woman raised her hand, and the air around him thickened. The ground cracked, and from the rift, twisted figures began to rise. Shadowy forms, like wraiths, crawled from the depths, their glowing eyes fixed on him. Kaelin could feel the magic around him warping, twisting, as the hollow came to life with dark power. You cannot stop what is inevitable, Kaelin, the woman said, her voice now reverberating with an ancient power. You were never meant to protect this land. You were meant to awaken it, to bring it to its true purpose. And now, you will help me. Never, Kaelin spat, his voice filled with defiance. I will not let you undo the work of the Silver Wolf. The balance will remain intact. With a flash, the woman summoned a wave of dark energy, crashing into Kalen and knocking him to the ground. His vision blurred as he struggled to rise, the weight of the power pressing down on him. The shadowy figures swarmed around him, their claws reaching for him, their whispers filling his mind with temptation. For the first time in years, Kalen felt doubt stir within him. The land was old, older than even the Silver Wolf, and the power that the Hollow harbored was vast, ancient, and unrelenting. Was he truly strong enough to protect it? But as the shadows closed in, something within Kalen stirred. The Silver Wolf's spirit rose to meet the darkness. His connection to the land, forged over a lifetime of dedication and sacrifice, gave him the strength to push back. He had not been chosen as the protector of Eldra to falter now. Drawing on the power of the Silver Wolf, Kalen stood tall, his body glowing with the light of the forest's magic. The ground beneath him rumbled as he called upon the earth, the trees, and the very heart of Eldra itself. The Hollow trembled. No, Kalen said, his voice steady and strong. This land will never fall to you. You will never corrupt it. With a cry, he raised his hands, and the power of Eldra surged through him. The shadowy figures screeched as they were torn apart by the pure force of the land's magic. The woman, the Hollow's guardian, screamed as the light consumed her, her form dissolving into the earth, her essence absorbed by the land she had tried to corrupt. As the last echoes of the battle faded, Kalen stood alone in the Hollow, his chest heaving with exertion. The land, though scarred, was once again safe. But Kalen knew this victory was only temporary. The land was ancient, and there would always be forces that sought to exploit its power. The balance was fragile, and as long as he drew breath, he would protect it, no matter the cost. I will guard you always, Eldra, Kalen whispered, his voice carrying the weight of a promise made long ago. The Silver Wolf's legacy will never fade. I will never let you fall. And as he turned to leave the Hollow, the forest began to heal once more. The trees whispered their thanks, their roots pulling Kalen's strength into the earth. The Silver Wolf's spirit, ever watchful, stood by his side. For as long as Eldra needed him, Kalen would be there, its protector, its guardian, its heart, and the land would always remain sacred.